The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, and thanks for joining us today for our webinar regarding tackling new malware and zero-day threats via Checkpoint Threat Prevention Solutions. My name is Shona Bradshaw. I'm going to be moderating today's webinar, and I am delighted to be joined by Tom Kendrick, who is a Senior Security Engineer and Checkpoint Threat Prevention Specialist at Checkpoint. So just to give you a little bit of an overview of what we're going to cover today, today's objective is to provide an insight into Checkpoint's new solution for dealing with malware and advanced threats, specifically zero-day vulnerabilities. The agenda for today, I'll give a very brief, and I will keep it brief, Bytes introduction, share why new malware protection is increasing in importance, and then hand over to Tom Kendrick from Checkpoint, who will cover the bulk of the presentation today. That will cover new malware, why it's increasing and what companies are doing about it, how to defend against rogue files, and blocking targeted attacks. And then Tom will jump into the interface and show you Checkpoint's threat emulation and threat prevention solutions in action before a Q&A. So a little bit of housekeeping for today. Lines will be on mute throughout the webinar. Questions are welcome. Please do post these via questions and chat for a quick Q&A at the end. Although if there are any private questions, please feel free to raise these via your account managers rather than to the group. We will keep discussions today strategic, so commercials will be able to be discussed offline after the webinar, but we will keep to technology and strategy today rather than discussing bespoke pricing. Further discussions are of course welcome with your Bytes account manager. And lastly, we'll have a survey at the end of the webinar. Please do take the time to fill it in so that we can make these sessions better and better for attendees. So a little bit about Bytes overall. We are within the 2.3 billion global electronics group, who are floated on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. Bytes internationally are a £700 million technology business, predominantly based in South Africa and the UK. And within the UK, there are two specialist businesses within the Bytes brand. Bytes Software Services, who are the largest Microsoft value-added reseller and a real software licensing and software asset management specialist, focusing on infrastructure such as Adobe, Oracle, Citrix, networking solutions, etc., and licensing, which is what they do best. Bytes Security Partnerships, the part of the business which I work for, are the network security specialist company within the group. We were acquired by Bytes in 2011, and we are now a £15 million business in our own right. So what do we do, security partnerships specifically? We are, as I previously said, a small independent reseller and focusing on network security. And since our acquisition by Bytes, that's what we've continued to do, focusing solely on security to do essentially what we do best. As part of that, we're really passionate about security education and security support and consulting. 50% of our employees are technical, and that means that we can wrap a whole suite of support, consultancy and education solutions around the technologies that we resell. For that reason, we enjoy top partner statuses such as our 4-star elite partnership with Checkpoint, and that means we can deliver real value in purchasing as well as real value in technical support to our customers. So enough about us. What's occurring? Why are we talking to you today about new malware? Well, the problem is, and the situation is, that zero-day threats are becoming increasingly common and a common threat vector. In 2014, new malware was downloaded every 27 minutes, so less than every half an hour, new malware is downloaded by someone in a UK organisation. Email is still the most common source of infection, and the old school firewalling and antivirus technologies really aren't geared up for new malware. Tom will take you a little bit later through a demo which shows that. The reason that we have joined with you today to talk about threat prevention is Checkpoint have created and added to their firewall suite bespoke solutions to focus on the zero day, to focus on unknown malware, and we're going to share those with you today. We'll also take the opportunity to demo how new malware can be blocked before it hits the network, so you can actually see that in action. So without further ado, I'm delighted to pass over to Tom Kendrick, who's going to be heading up Checkpoint's European Threat Prevention team. He'll take you through a little bit about what Checkpoint are doing in this space and show you the technologies in action. Over to Tom.
Okay, thanks, Shona. So Shona, just confirm you can see my screen okay?
I can, that's absolutely fine. I can hear you loud and clear.
Hopefully it's all right your end. Perfect. Okay. So morning everybody. As Shona says, thanks for having us today. My name is Tom Kendrick. I'm a European security engineer within the threat prevention business here at Checkpoint. And what we're going to try and do today is bring up to speed a little bit with what's been going on with Checkpoint, look at just an example or two of some of the malware research that we do, and look at some of the technologies that we have that can try and help you prevent this kind of attack or these kind of vulnerabilities from ever getting into your network. So without further ado, let's get cracking. So I'll do a quick introduction to myself and kind of what we do at Checkpoint within the UK organisation. I will quickly discuss the threat prevention strategy that we have and the work that we are doing behind the scenes and the reason that we've made the steps that we've made. I'll discuss a malware story that I'd like to share with you on some of the work that our research teams have done. I will look into the technologies, so threat emulation, threat extraction and hyperwise, three different technology names that you may or may not have heard of, and I'll just go into what they are, what they do, and the differences. I'll look also at how our technologies integrate into our endpoint solutions. So again, to give you the best picture of what's going on, there are steps you can take on the network side, but obviously you have to remember people take their laptops home, they work from cafes, whatever it might be, and at the end of the day, because of that, we need to make sure that the endpoint is covered as well, and also we need to make sure that we understand how attacks came about and what we can do about them. I'll then do a quick demonstration and just try and show you some of the technologies in action as well. Now, as far as Q&A, what we'll try and do is we'll try and keep Q&A till the end, as Shona mentioned. The aim here is to kind of not, sort of, I suppose, ruin the flow of the session, but any questions that people may have, by all means, pop them into the chat. We'll try and address them on the way. If not, what we can do is we can address them via the account manager or the feedback forms at the end of the session. Okay, so over to the introduction. So Checkpoint as an organisation, obviously something Shona mentioned to me is there may be some of you that may not be completely aware of what Checkpoint are, what we do, and for some of our newer customers where we're in these different fields, these are kind of areas in which Checkpoint operate. Okay, so as far as background to us as an organisation, we were founded in 1993 and we have around 3,000 employees globally. We are a Gartner Magic Quadrant leader in enterprise network firewalls since 1997. So it's only through the way that we've innovated and kind of led the security market that we've been able to stay in that top right corner. We're also a unified threat prevention leader for 4 years and counting, and also a mobile data protection leader for 8 years and counting. So again, 100% security focused company, but with a real drive to kind of always do the best that we can. Now, as far as some of you may be aware, kind of a lot of people associate the word Checkpoint with firewall and traditional stateful inspection firewall, which is a technology that innovated and invented. But over the past few years, we've been recognized by other organizations in the industry. So, for example, NSS Labs, they've given us their highly recommended status 9 times since 2011. And for those of you that know of the test, the common criteria EAL4 test, the standard that all of the government organisations want products to be tested to, we're the only organisation that went in for what they call medium robustness testing. What does that mean? It means that the guys that did the attack, they were more skilled. So you can have basic testing, you can have medium testing, and obviously you can do higher as well if you wish. We're the only guys that went for that medium robustness testing. Now the key thing that underpins all of what we do is the management. And it wouldn't be possible to have all of these different products providing all these different services to all of our different end users had it not been an easy to manage, great visibility system that let us do that. Okay. As we move into this year, you'll see some mention of a release called R80. So again, we continue to innovate with the R80 release, which you'll see in a few short months. And also in threat prevention field, we've done really well in the independent testing that has taken place by Meacom to show how we have really kind of come into this market but really shaken things up and are getting real top awards. So what I want to just discuss with you as well is a concept, if you will. Checkpoint is built around an architecture called software-defined protection, and it's a blueprint that we have for how we see organizations doing security. Now, this is a platform-independent, vendor sort of agnostics approach, but it's something that we really believe in, and we think that it helps businesses limit the exposure to risk. It's made up of 3 layers. So down at the very bottom layer, there is the enforcement layer. Now, the enforcement layer is ultimately where our technologies are applied. Now, the enforcement devices could be laptops, they could be gateways, they could be cloud services, cloud devices, mobile devices. It doesn't really matter. The key thing for us is the enforcement point should be something that does the protection and does the enforcement for you, and there's a two-way communication between that and the next layer above, which is called the control layer. Now, the control layer we see split into 2 halves. We have the policy for security, which you can see on the left-hand side, and we have the threat intelligence on the right-hand side. Now, the reason that we do this is, in our minds, and hopefully in yours as well, the people that know the security policy the best for your organization is you. So when it comes to access control, when it comes to data protection, then really you are the best people to understand that, to enforce that, to control that. When it comes to threat prevention, that's a place where we feel that we can add some real value for you alongside the partners, and what we'd like you to do is to kind of treat these 2 elements hand in hand, but let us manage the threat intelligence feeds, if you will, and they should be fed down as protections down to your enforcement layer devices. We couldn't go any further with that. Mention it again. What will underpin all of the management layer, that's to control, to understand, to report, to interact with many different systems. So the management layer for us is what integrates us into other parts of the business or other parts of the business process. Now, this model's kind of come about really because of the change in what we have. Back in the day when many of you started in the industry, the perimeter security device was really simple. You had a network, there was the internet, and you would pop your device to protect you from the bad guys on the internet. What we see today is the business has expanded, where the data might be has expanded, the threats obviously therefore have multiplied up, and it makes it very, very difficult because of where your data is, who might have access to it, and the times of day and night that people want access to this data. How is it you can secure an environment that's this complex? Now, the other thing that we've seen as well is a huge change in how malware is being used over the past few years to try and attack our customers. And it's almost that some of these things have become a commodity. Also, as the skill level of the different nations rises, as people become more educated and these tools become freely available, it's actually quite scary how little skill is required to try and sort of circumvent. So what I'd like to do is to move into the threat prevention strategy and show you what we've been doing within Checkpoint as a business. And the first thing I'd like to cover off is the internal changes that we've made. There have been huge changes internally within Checkpoint that actually had to start a number of years ago. Seeing the change in the market, we had to, again, ensure that we are always leading the game, always ahead of the game, and make sure that our internal systems, internal R&D structure and similar, and our business is aligned to where the market is going. We also have dedicated teams that we can call upon to assist customers for any specific needs that they have. So we have kind of like an emergency bat phone that you can call. So if you're under attack, again, just let one of us know, let your partner know, and we can get you involved with those guys. We also have what we call overlay teams. So within Europe and around the world, we have overlay teams who are sort of subject matter experts in specific technologies. And again, our plan is to work with and through the partners to give you the best protections that you can get to ensure that your staff can work with confidence. And my role from being an SE within the UK has now changed slightly, so I now report into that European Threat Prevention team. So I'm an overlay for our own staff and for our partners. So sometimes I get asked, well, okay, how rife is this? How difficult is this? What kind of skill level do we need to control a computer inside an organization? Now, unfortunately, if you're only using basic security protections, then an attacker can remote control a computer in your organization, but with very, very little skill. And with that control, with what they call RATs, or remote administration tools, they can collect information, they can take files, they can do screenshots, key logs, anything. They can even steal the database of the user accounts. Now, the more scary thing, I suppose, from my point of view, and again, I've seen this, I've experienced this in my own lab and in the own research, in the research that we do. Sometimes we're asked, well, how do I know if I've been compromised? Now, okay, what would you see? Would I see anything obvious? Now, if you're using just basic security protections, all you're going to see is outbound HTTP traffic, okay? Something that the bad guys know is going to be allowed. So really, networks need protections that are going to protect against modern threats. And this is where we have the Checkpoint Threat Prevention suite of technologies. And behind it, we also have Threat Cloud, which is our database of all the malware research and all the information that we have that a lot of these services communicate with to allow us to learn, to ask, to share this kind of threat-based information. So the Checkpoint strategy is really to have what we call a multi-layered threat prevention approach. Okay. Now, our thought is, if you take the cyber kill chain, the one that the guys at Lockheed Martin created, if you take that cyber kill chain, the bad guys have got a number of hops they need to work through to attack or to infiltrate your organization. So we have a number of different mechanisms that we can put in place that can break any point in that chain, and the result of that break is, if we can break that chain, the attack can't happen, they have to try another way, or again, hopefully they get bored. So if we take a look at each of the layers, IPS is one of the early layers that we can apply, because ultimately IPS is there to block or stop known vulnerabilities. Okay, so for example, let's say for example there is an attack that is open to Adobe Reader. It's something that can get disclosed, it's something we can write a signature for, it's something we can help you protect against. Okay? Antivirus is there to help firstly block access to sites that do contain malware, and secondly, if you access another site, what we also do is we make sure that we can block the malware so it doesn't get downloaded to your machine at all. Next we have Anti-Bot, and Anti-Bot is there really for resources where, let's say we haven't seen this virus, we haven't seen this malware before. What we can do with Anti-Bot is we look at the network traffic, the communications in and out of the machines in your network. We can look at the patterns, the behavior of the devices, and based on the way that they're acting, we can then obviously understand whether that is malicious activity and prevent that type of communication. And then finally, where we have what's sometimes called unknown malware, sometimes called APT, sometimes called 0 days, we have technologies which help us block downloading of new malware through a technology that we have which comes under the bracket of threat emulation. So I want to just go through a recent malware story, something that our malware researchers were looking at and working on, and I want to just discuss with you something called CBT Locker. So you may have heard of CBT Locker. If not, it's similar to Cryptolocker, but it uses more advanced algorithms in the way that it runs. And because it uses these more advanced algorithms, the reality is it's more difficult for us to detect and obviously prevent. As a piece of software, it's something called an encryptor, and the role or the actions of an encryptor are to take your personal data and to encrypt it, okay, to make sure that you no longer have access to it. What they then do is they try and get money from you to get the key, if you will, to unlock that data again, and the way that we saw it spreading is through email spam messages. Now, as a piece of software, as you can see, it's very, very clever. It uses various cryptographic algorithms and also the Tor network to help it spread. So again, that also makes it very, very difficult for us to see its communications. And the last thing this software does is when it asks you for money, it doesn't want cold hard cash, it doesn't want Visa or whatever, it wants Bitcoins. So Bitcoins is an electronic form of money. Now, what did our malware researchers do? So the malware researchers started taking a look at CBT Locker, and what they wanted to do was watch what happened when it ran. And one of the things that you can do is research what the product does, but you can also look at what the traffic coming in and out of that sample of malware does, to see if there's something that we can pick up that we can then use in the future. And this is what we got. So again, looking at this initially, well, it doesn't look that helpful. It's not really some instantly write some sort of signature from. So what the guys did is started to run it on different platforms and they tried to again observe what this piece of malware did. And what they found was when they started to run it, they would see different icons. So it would sometimes show a PDF icon or a smiley face or a printer or something relating to just a general command or executable. Sometimes it would look like something maybe from a Visual Studio type application. Now, this is what the guys were looking at, so they kind of said, well, okay, let's install it, let's run it, and let's see what it does. Now, unfortunately, what happened was when you ran it, this is what it did. It started to encrypt all of your data. And once it started to encrypt your data, it gives you this scary warning to say, again, don't touch, don't do anything. If you don't kind of let this behave and kind of take its course, you're never going to get access to your files again, okay? So one of the things that we notice is the software does let you see what it has encrypted, so it kind of proves the validity that it's seeing your files, taking your files. If you want to go and have a look at what they've been up to, here is a link. You can see what's gone on with your files, and they even show you a list of the files that they've encrypted. So again, you can try if you wish to get some of the files back, just a few of the examples, but again their intention really is to get you to pay in Bitcoins. So they want about 3 Bitcoins for this, which is about $600. to get the keys to decrypt your files and to get your files back again. So how did the guys crack it? What did they do? What did they see? Well, actually, it was further work into the network traffic that actually exposed some things that were quite interesting. Now, first of all, they noticed that a lot of that conversation was over secure channels, so that makes it very difficult for us to see. And again, they changed the encryption mechanism each time, so again, it makes it very, very difficult to write a simple signature for. Nonetheless, there were some things that were common in some of the conversations that we saw. So this started to give us this idea of, okay, I think now we can do something, this attack. Now the interesting thing was, this was the site, so ip.talese.com, that was the key that we saw in understanding what the malware was going to do, and again, one of those little triggers that we can start to look for and say, hang on a minute, there's something here we can do further investigation with. Now this site, it offers an API which gives you IP address and location based information. So you will ask it for some information and it will return kind of where you are, where you're connecting from. The other thing the guys also saw was a common user agent. So for example, in every browser when you connect to a website, you send your user agent so it knows how to format the page for your type of device, so that we don't get a mobile view on a desktop and vice versa. So this was one of the tests that they did. So they connected to the ip.talese.com and they could see the information returned on where they were connecting from, and also the country information if they wanted it as well. Now what happened is, when they looked at the malware, there were a few interesting things that they picked up. So firstly, the same user agent was used regardless of how they made the connection. So every time it always said, I am this type of device, so Windows NT 6.2, Windows 64, x64, so kind of a Windows-based device running some of the newer Windows operating systems. And that stayed the same regardless of how we made the connection, regardless of which device we made the connection from. They also saw, as you can see at the top of the GET request, quite a very long and interesting GET request. And as well, you can see that there's some interesting cookies in this information here that kind of shows, well, again, not the kind of thing that you'll be sending or receiving when communicating with a web server in normal operations. So what did the guys do, and how do you guys get protected? Well, if you look in any of our tools, in our threat wiki, or in some of our other resources, in the antibot and antivirus technology, you'll see trojan-ransom.win32.onion. Okay, so that's the name it's been given. And again, if you type in that into our threat cloud services, you can actually see that there are 20 different results based upon this one piece of malware. And again, any of those I can click through, and I can then detail on where it's come from, where are we seeing it, what kind of risk, how do we protect against it, and what happens if it actually appears or lands in my network. So now on to threat emulation, threat extraction, and hyperwise. Now one thing I'd like to say is, think of all of these technologies, and you'll see this in the summary, think of all of these technologies as threat emulation. Okay, they are all special features, special tools that are either here now or technology that's coming shortly, that gives you the ability to understand what's happening in the owner. So just going back to what we saw earlier on, again, these technologies are all under the threat emulation umbrella, okay, and that they do, it feeds back up into Threat Cloud such that other technologies can benefit from it, and again other organizations can benefit from it as well. So we do like to see customers who use technologies like threat emulation to share that information back with Threat Cloud so we can benefit the entire Checkpoint community. So as we saw earlier on, just revisiting this slide, sometimes we have all these excellent technologies, all these clever things that we can do, and one of the things I always kind of want to remind people is don't forget about the things that you do have. All of the checkpoint gateways that are next generation firewall, they all come with IPS and other technologies. Okay, now so many people don't take the they have well-recognized, well-scrutinized, trusted pieces of software, and in each of those cases, within just a few hours, Checkpoint had IPS signatures that were valid, available, so that all of our customers could ensure that the systems, either behind or around the Checkpoint environments, they were protected. Okay, so I'd just like to kind of reaffirm this, so do take advantage of the technologies that you do have and all the clever things that they can do for you. So, threat emulation, what is it, what does it do? Okay, threat emulation is there to stop the unknown malware, the 0 days, the advanced persistent threats from actually getting through your defenses, and it's made up of 4 steps: the inspection, the emulation, prevention, and then the turning back into from an unknown to a known. So first of all, if you use the cloud services that we have available, then you don't need any additional devices adding to your network at all. Okay, as long as you're running 77 or higher, 7720 or very soon 7730, you can turn these features on your gateway, and you can offload all the heavy work of emulation to Checkpoint. Okay, so what we do is we are looking at files across web and across mail, and we're looking at Java Flash executables, archives, PDF documents, a whole host of things. And what we do is we send those files to a virtual sandbox, and we let them run, and we let them see what they do. So over at the emulation stage, we have Windows XP and Windows 7, and then shortly to arrive Windows 8. And in this environment, we run the file, and we look for abnormal behavior. We're looking at the file system, the registry, the connections, the processes that are running, and what we're saying is anything that we are not happy with, those are the kind of things that we're picking up, and from those things we can give you the next step, which is then to block those files in line, be they over web, email, and that includes HTTPS and TLS encrypted email when using MTA. Okay, so we can block both open and secure channels, and we can prevent those things from ever coming into your network. Now the next clever thing that we then do is we then feed that information back up into Threat Cloud. The idea here is that the collaboration allows us to turn, as I say, the unknown into something that's known, and it will mean that very, very quickly someone who doesn't have these protections or isn't aware of this piece of malware now has the protection piece of what was unknown malware. As far as deployment, it's dead simple to deploy into your organization. As I say, you've got one of 2 options. You can either turn on threat emulation on the perimeter devices or data center devices, and then you can either use a dedicated threat emulation appliance which is yours and yours alone and lives in your network and can be shared by all your gateways, or you can use our cloud service. Okay, the result is that the impact therefore on the end gateway is very low, because all it's having to do is reassemble the file, kind of put it back in order, check it for any sort of devious encoding that an attacker may try and do, and then send it on to either the local appliance or the cloud for the emulation. Now, on to threat extraction. Threat extraction is a technology that's going to be released in 7730 that complements what threat emulation does. The idea of threat extraction is it proactively removes anything that's potentially malicious from files coming into your organization. So embedded objects, macros, scripts, what we do is, as those documents come in, so this is something specific to documents, and it's specific to email today, as those documents come in to you as an organization, we can check them, we can take out all those bad elements, and we can then turn them into something that we know is 100% clean. Okay, so as far as the mail flow, attachment comes in, comes across to the gateway. From the gateway, we then do the check, and we do the dropping of the malicious content. The clean attachment gets passed to the end user, and at the same time, we educate the user to say, this is what's happened, this is what we've done. Now, if you do require the original file, the file has been sent for threat emulation anyway, and what we will then do is, based upon the result of the emulation, the activity, whether it's good, whether it's bad, we will either then give you or not that file. Obviously, let's make sure that it's clean first. Next technology I want to just cover, just a very, very quick highlight for, is hyperwise. Now, hyperwise is a technology acquisition that Check Point has just recently made, and I suppose if we look at how an attack is generally constructed, what you start off with is initially a vulnerability. Okay, so there has to be something that I can attack as an attacker if I want to get access to your systems. So from that vulnerability, we then create an exploit, and what we try and do is we try and bypass the mechanisms that the operating system guys put in place. So, for example, DEP. So the data execution prevention, or the address space randomization technologies. So for those that may know ALSR, what we're trying to do is these guys are trying to bypass those techniques and get it to a stage where their shellcode lands on your computer. Okay. Once the shellcode's landed, the shellcode's not generally very intelligent. It's very small. What it's going to try and now do is pull down the malware, and it's that malware that's going to run that malicious code to have the bad impact. Now, there are many thousands of vulnerabilities and many millions of malware, but actually, as far as the exploit down in the CPU level, it's based around something called ROP, Return-Orientated Programming, and ROP chains, and something that we call gadgets, which again we can discuss with you on a one-to-one basis. But ultimately, there are very few ways to attack a machine, and it's a technology that we've acquired that lets us detect the attack before it actually begins. So before the malware lands and starts to do anything bad, we are able to detect the exploits at a very, very early stage. Okay, so as a technology summary for these technologies, threat emulation is here, it's available, it's something you can buy, you can use now. Really, its key feature is to block and prevent these unknown vulnerabilities, but to give you also visibility into what was initially an unknown event. And obviously the result of that is it improves security for you as an organization. Secondly, in R77.30, which we'll soon see, threat extraction has also been added. And in threat extraction, as we say, this is a solution based on extracting the bad elements, the active elements out of documents, and currently it works over email. There is a web solution which we can demonstrate now through a browser plugin, and there is also a solution for web planned in H2. But because we need to completely intercept the file over email, we have to have MTA, so a mail transport agent, so we have to intercept the email, stop, extract, take out the bad elements, or possible bad elements, or active content, and then send it on its way. Its aim is to give you malware-free files very, very quickly. Okay, and finally, hyperwise is a technology acquisition which is there to perform CPU-level malware detection. Okay, as it stands today, again, all of these things kind of come under one umbrella of threat emulation. As far as hyperwise technology integration, it will be added into the cloud soon, and added it into a new set of hardware platforms in the sort of short to medium term as well. So as far as the threat prevention summary, what I would say is consider the emulation, the extraction and hyperwise all part of the same family as we understand today. Our intentions are we hope to have them all as one single product. They all do their own special task for different types of attack or different types of file, but the key thing is you're going to be safe. Okay? The only thing that you want to know, the only thing that you care about is you're going to be safe. Now, just want to quickly touch on the endpoint side of things, and for those of you that either are or are not paying attention, you'll see that there is a picture of Chewbacca on my screen. Now, why is there a picture of Chewbacca, you may ask? I want to just talk quickly about a piece of malware, a malware that we call Chewbacca. Okay, so here's John, and John has searched for a up-and-coming Star Wars movie that he would like to get hold of before its release. Now, what happens is somebody is only too pleased to offer you this this film before release, but for you to view it, they want you to install our viewer app first. Now, when they download that viewer app, that's when bad things start to happen. So they go out to the malicious website, they do give you the clip or the movie, but they also deliver something there as well, which is the malware, and it's at this stage when the malware bad activity starts to happen and where your machine is now under the control of the command and control masters. So for this we have a forensics technology. And this forensics technology sort of asks and answers a number of questions that we get asked by our customers. Obviously, the network-based technologies are brilliant to prevent and to stop these things happening. But sometimes we see the end of the conversation, the last stages in the chain. Customers often then ask us, well, how did I get compromised? Which was the device that was originally compromised? Has this thing moved around my network and someone else has got this same file or files? And what should I do next to make sure it doesn't happen again? And this is where the forensics technologies on the endpoint can help. Because think of this like a tape recorder for your endpoint PCs. Okay, it's reporting and recording all of the activity on the endpoint device as far as network, file system, and processes. So everything that happens is being recorded. Now, if it gets an incident or an alert, what will happen is either the gateway, the endpoint, or an admin or user or a third-party AV system can kind of kick this product into action. And what then happens is we now want to track how that malware got to your network and how it came about and what we can do to prevent it. Okay, so again, we can kind of track the path of what's gone on. Once we see that incident, all of the information is prepared as a report, and all the logs get sent back to the management server or the log server. And again, it then gives your team a way of stopping and understanding and damage limiting anything that may have happened in the network. The clever thing here is obviously this works when you're outside the network as well, because you can use our capture technologies which stop these things really, really quickly and simply and transparently when you're outside the office and when you're outside the checkpoint gateway. So the kind of thing that you get is this kind of report, or this is a sort of a mock-up of one of the reports. The clever thing here is all of these different files, all of these different bits of activity, these are all things that we can feed back into Threat Cloud. And again, the benefit is that many, many people can benefit from the initial work that was done by recording those events on the endpoint. So what I'm going to do is try and give you guys a quick demonstration. And actually the credit for this demonstration goes to one of the checkpoint team. Okay, so for those that may or may not know, we have an engineer who's called Ian Porteous, and what Ian has done is he's made a really clever demo, and from that demo we can see different bits of malware activity. Okay, so if I try and run this file, what should happen is it will say no. being very, very simply put, what happens is in this malware, the malware can't run, it doesn't have permissions, it's not allowed to. Okay? If I want to run this malware, the only way that I can do it is by changing some permissions so that I'm able to do so as a domain admin. Now, when I try and run this file, what will happen is the file itself will not be allowed to run. Okay? Because it can't run, I will then try and execute the file. Okay, so because this is shell script, this can't run at all, and what I'll do is I'll try and run the file itself, and it's not allowed to run. So what will happen is I will try and run this content. So I may get a security warning, I may not. If I try and run this file and I put in my credentials, what we see is the file gets sent behind the scenes to a secret server where I no longer have access to that file itself. Okay? Now, what's happened behind the scenes is my file has run, it's asked for my credentials, and it's sent my credentials over to a web server.
Tom, we've just briefly lost your screen.